Hello everyone, welcome to the WorldPainter tutorial. I'm going to be showing you the basics of WorldPainter, and I'm going to be going through pretty much an entire map, just a very simple map. It will include trees, a couple other things. I'm not going to show too many specifics, like for example how to create a schematic to put into WorldPainter. That should be pretty self-explanatory, hopefully. But if not, I might have to do that in a separate video. Hopefully not. It should be, as I said, self-explanatory. First off, though, let's just get right into movement and how to move around. So we have, if you middle click on a mouse, you can just do that, pan around. Then if you do control scroll wheel, you can scroll in and out on the using the mouse wheel. And it seems there's something funky going on with how I have this set up. But next part, let's go to File and create a new world, because obviously my WorldPainter looks a little bit different than your WorldPainter, and that's just because of my preferences are set up just a little bit differently, and I'm going to show you how to fix that. Including these, my defaults are set up differently. So let's create a new world, and I'm just going to zoom in, zoom out. Okay, good, all good. So if I go into Edit, Preferences, and if we go to Defaults, well, actually, if you look at this right here is my visual theme. If you want to use this same one, it doesn't really matter though. If we go to defaults now, this is how you set up the default for how your world's going to generate. So here we go. Maximum brush size. I have mine set to 500. So this is how many pixels your brush size will end up being, or blocks basically. And hopefully that makes sense. You can set this up bigger or smaller, but you can end up crashing your program if you're not careful, especially if you're doing dragging motions. Most of the time though, you're only going to be doing in a single spot and using the scroll wheel predominantly for most of your movement. Especially for textures, you generally don't actually scroll across. For a mountain, you'd probably scroll across, but anyway, long story short, you generally don't need anything too big unless you're doing something specific, like if you have a certain like brush that you want to use that is a bit more detailed, then you could increase the size there. The dimensions doesn't really matter because we're going to be changing the dimensions for each one most of the time, because mine generally change very often. You'll probably want it to be flat, and then on a level of 4 for the ground, water level is at 0. And then I don't have beaches turned on. And then right here, the surface material, just set it to stone or whatever. But we could also set it to grass, and you know what? I'll set it to bare grass. So let's just have it as that for now. So here we go. So we have world type default. These is self-explanatory. Then we have structures. Turn that off. They're very annoying. And then creative mode, survival, whatever, set to creative and allow cheats, so you can fly around and see your build when you're done, see your terrain. And I don't think there's anything else that's really useful that I should explain. I think that's it. So now that we're in here, I'm going to go through and try to explain a couple things here. Let's actually create a new world. I think this will be good enough. The dimensions at 640 by 640. I don't think I'll need it to be any bigger than that. This should be good. Be fairly decently small, won't be that big. So there's all these different brushes and these different materials, and then we have layers, and we have custom layers, we have biomes, and then this is just annotations to, yeah, they're, for most part, we're just going to be in these three. And then I have custom brushes as well, which I'll show you in a minute. You can just download these off the internet. In fact, you can just copy the name Evman or Jaracraft's brushes over here, and they should be on Planet Minecraft, and you can download those. And then if we go into our edit, where was it? We go into, was it help or tools? There we go. Open custom brushes folder. If you go over to here, you'll be able to open up your custom brushes folder and be able to change that to whatever you really need to, because you can just plop in your folder with your custom brushes, custom images, and it's literally just that easy. And these are definitely really cool for sure. I'll have to try some of these out in a minute. I mean, I already tried them out previously, but let's get into the next important part. Let's see if there's anything else you'll need to know in here that I won't be explaining later. We can also import custom items, custom layers from other stuff, and from files. We can also import new world from a Minecraft map as well, or a height map, which I'll be explaining height map later. For Minecraft map is self-explanatory if you already have a world that you want to add terrain to. Then we can also merge this with an existing Minecraft map, which you probably would do if you did it from a previous, from a Minecraft map like that. So next, I'm just going to go through all these different tools and explain each one. So this right here is the spray brush commands, not command, but tool. So if we go over here and use it, as you can tell, it's more dense in the center, especially because I have it set up with a slight fade. So towards the center, it's going to have more blocks. Towards the outside, it won't have as many. But if it's like this, it's completely solid. It's just random. And we can set the intensity to how many blocks are going to be changed each time. So this is very good for texturing if you want to have a lot of different textures going on. Especially if you set it like this, and we can add it in all over the place and use this to get different gradients depending on where we are in our terrain, basic stuff, basic just painting. So this right here is a different brush. So this is basically the same thing as this, except for it's not a spray can, it's literally just more like a pencil. But if you draw a line, it gets very laggy very quickly, so generally we don't draw lines with it. We generally tap, which I'll show you how that works later on. This one here is a fill. Now what that does is it will replace any block that you click with the block that you're wanting to replace it with. So let's say we want to replace this dirt here with sand. We'll replace all the connected pieces with sand, and apparently most of this was connected, even though I didn't expect it to be. So if we create a little thing here, we can replace this with the diorite, and then boom, there we go. So it's literally just that simple. Now let me actually change this all back to grass real quick. There we go. Hard to see. I'm not entirely sure what the letters do. I've never used the letters before. Water just places water on the ground, and if you forgot to mention this earlier, if you left click, it's adding. If you right click, it's subtracting. Same way with the other tools that I mentioned previously. And sponge will just erase water. So if I create just a little bit of terrain, even though I did not need to do what I just did there. There we go. So if I do this, let me set this up to be 100%. And just create a little bowl for our terrain. We can put water right here. As you can see, it goes one up every single time, and the default height for water is actually 62. So if we wanted this to be the default height, let's actually see. Okay, there we go. We have our water level. It would be actually way up here. So there we go. This is our default height if it was in standard Minecraft. And there we go. So this is how tall the oceans would be. So hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, right clicking again will subtract, and left clicking will add. So that's obviously very, very useful. So for the water, same thing. Subtract, add. Same way with the lava. Subtract, add. Sponge, what that does is it will erase it just completely all the way down, which can be very useful if you want to have lava in one area on one side of the map and you don't want to have lava in a different side of the map, even though they're connected per se. So that's something you can keep in mind, especially because it can end up getting out of hand if you're not careful. Especially if you want lava like up here, right? And you want it to be flowing down the edge of the map. But see how you end up not being able to remove the lava once you get it up this high. So that's why you would add the lava like that, and you can just use your sponge and subtract it like that. There you go. So it is the correct height, but now we have lava flowing down over there. So that kind of thing you can use. Let me just erase that. Here we go. So we have up and down. This is exactly what you think. So if I just get like one of these brushes, we can just go straight up, or we can go straight down. It's exactly what you would imagine this brush to do So right clicking is down, left clicking is up. This is the flatten brush, so we can use this to flatten out terrain based off of where we click, and it will go up to that point. This obviously is extremely useful if you just want to flatten out certain areas or get a very uniform height around different places around the terrain. Next we have smooth. This just smooths out the blocks to make it more connected, more round, and this is to place a mountain. This basically makes it way more have a lot more strength to your thing. So this is more gradiates. This gradiates a bit more. See how slow it goes? This one is almost like a direct value of what you would, if that makes sense. Like a hard to explain it besides direct value one to another. Well, the other one, this one adds. This one's almost like instantaneous. It doesn't doesn't add upon the previous block that you put down. Hopefully that makes sense. This probably will make sense later on. There you go. We can subtract some stuff. Let's just make a mess at the moment. Fun thing to do. Just play around, make a mess. Different blocks that you got going on. Though it does appear that it doesn't subtract nearly as much as I thought it would. But this is looking really cool so far. There we go. But it is very strong already. There we go. Yes, I'm trying to get an idea of how I want to do the terrain for later on. But it's not going too well. So this right here is a set spawn. We can set the spawn wherever we want. And then, oh, nope. Let's just set it there for now. This does global operations. It just does a uniform operation throughout the entire thing. This is a pyramid. Literally all it is a pyramid. It's that simple. It's actually a bit frustrating because it doesn't really do anything, to be honest. This one is just, it rotates the pyramid. This is a selection, so we can create a selection and we can make it where you can only do stuff outside the selection or inside the selection with these. This right here is to copy the selection, or we can clear the selection. So that's pretty much it for those. And obviously these blocks, especially if we click this custom material, we can select any block that we want and then paint with it. Pretty self-explanatory so far. Inside, outside, there we go. Add or above, this is basically just makes it where you can only paint or edit whatever you're doing at or above a certain block. This one's at or below a certain block. Self-explanatory. Then only on, this will only let you do a certain action only on a certain block. This one's except on, so it'll do your action for except on a certain block. This one's at above a certain angle or below a certain angle, it will do a certain action. Pretty simple. So let's see, what is our first order of business? Let's actually get into creating a small little map. And I'm just going to create a new world. And we're just going to start in, and I hope this turns out pretty good. I have no plan for how I'm going to do this. So we'll just see. For the most part, I just want to play around with the different ideas and just sort of spam different blocks around different areas and just get an idea. There we go. We can even subtract different areas over here, which I think could be pretty cool, especially rotate, which this, yeah, rotation is right here. So we can rotate what we're doing. Oh, do that over there, and then add up our blocks. And I think this is definitely another cool one to use. Here we go. Start out small, then scale it up. Small, scale it up. I sort of want to have a very large mountain on the side over here. And I want everything to sort of gradiate from this point onward. So I want this to be the main mountain, and then the other mountain, and it'll sort of go down from this point. So I want it to get gradually smaller as it goes down. If that makes sense. Oh my, definitely don't want that. And then let's get this rotated back to a 0 degrees. There we go. So I want this that's not right. There we go, 45 degrees. So I want this over here, and I want that over there. I don't think that'll be necessarily perfect. Let's try this right here. So I want another mountain sort of like on the side of this mountain. There we go. So I want another mountain. Let's see, get a couple other blocks going on over here. Smooth this out. And we'll use some of these ones over here. These are not as high quality as Evman's, and you'll sort of see that because they're way too smooth if you try using it. So we can use it just for more like detail pieces on the edges over here. We're getting a little details on the side of these mountains. But not much for anything else, to be honest. For the most part, these are better for adding on top of, not really using the mountain tool. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to start with this one over here. There you go. Sort of see how this is more useful when you use it like this, rather than using it how I was using it a minute ago. And we're going to just, there we go. Increase this. Bit bigger, a little bit less uniform on the hills. What's going on over there? And I want to have some hills going on over here. And that's a bit, it's not, there we go, I want it right on the edge. And then I want this right there. And we want a mountain, one with a very noticeable peak right inside of this area right here. We're going to need to mix this up with a couple other ones. There we go. I think this will be good enough. And then I want to use this a couple more times in this area because I really like how this one turns out. If I can get rotated in a way that makes it look good. Moment, it's not really working. There we go. I think this will be good enough. Let's see if we can flatten some of this out. Oh my, that changed it way too much. I think this will be good enough. Now we need to remove the layers of frost. Now we'll show you how to add frost, but it's not necessarily something I want to show because it can be a little bit frustrating, but I will anyway because it's something you probably will want to know how to do. So let's just change all this to stone, and then what we're going to do is we're going to change the layers of terrain. Let's start out with permadirt, and let's paint on the permadirt at or below 50 degrees. So if it's at or below 50 degrees, then it will be permadirt. Then we're going to have this as grass path at anything less than 40 degrees. Let's just do 45 degrees just to really get that in there. There, 45 degrees. Let's go down to 35 degrees or 30 degrees. Yeah, let's do 30. I'll have that be grass. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the frost. Now the frost, we want that to be at or above a certain block limit. So let's try 60. Let's just see where 60 lands us. So if it's at 60, it gives us a fair bit of grass over there. But I think it'd be better if there's a bit less snow. Let's just do that on all of the mountains. There we go. And but let's just leave it at that then. This will be good enough. We could just use one of these brushes just to sort of put it around randomly. So at or above there, and you can just sort of put it around randomly, so it won't be perfectly everywhere. There we go. That's pretty much the plan. I think that will work best. There we go. So now we have our snow, we have our grass, we have all of that. Okay, what else are we going to need besides plants? First off, we're going to want this to be bare grass. I forgot to mention that. So only on terrain grass, we're going to want this to be bare grass, which basically just click around. There we go. So now it's all bare grass. And then we had the intensity set wrong, so let's actually turn that back on, just in case if it didn't change at all, which it should have. And we're going to be changing the biome later. I believe this is pretty much it for the terrain. This is just super quick terrain. And I'll be showing you guys a whole lot more about creating your own brushes later using a couple different programs, a couple different methods. But if you don't want to wait, I do have a tutorial on how to use Blender to generate terrain, and you can use that to generate your own brushes. So here we go. Add custom layer. We can add a custom plants layer. And what we can do with that is at or below 100, or probably not 100, probably something a bit different. We can add, here we go, we want grass, we want this to be 10, we want tall grass to be 3, fern to be 1, large fern to be 2. I mean, this would be 2, this would be 1, tall grass to be 4. And we're going to want, let's just do a blue orchid 2. Let's do blue orchid 1, have these all a bit higher, so that we'll have less blue orchids. And there we go. So let's just set that to be that. And we'll set this to be 50%, give or take. And if it's at or below a certain point, then it will be our plants, and it's set to 50. So there we go. That is going to be a lot of plants everywhere, but that's fine. That's pretty much how it's supposed to be. Now we're going to create a new one for an object layer. I have a custom tree pack that I downloaded a long time ago whenever I first got WorldPainter, and I never bothered to create my own trees. But I would recommend you making your own trees. You can basically just use a schematic, so you just need to download a schematic and use that. It's pretty simple. But for the most part, for whenever you're doing this, you're going to need to be very careful where you put different sized trees. For this tutorial, because I'm in a hurry, I'm only going to be using trees that I know will work well for what I'm trying to do. So tall trees, you have to put tall trees in a very specific area of the map. Most of the time not on the tops of mountains. You need to put it in a valley. So a tree like this needs to be put in a valley so that you know exactly where it is, for one. But so that whenever it's on top of the mountain, it won't distort the effect of the mountain. Mountains in Minecraft are not set to scale to real life. So if you put a ginormous tree on the top of a mountain, it's going to make your mountain look tiny. Now on the other hand, if you put a bunch of smaller trees around a pretty fairly sized mountain like what we got going on here, this will give us a lot more opportunity to make the mountain look bigger. This is sort of an illusion that we can create for the player so that they think that the map is bigger than what it actually is. So first off, let's actually remove this plants layer. We need to have it feathered, and we're going to set this to be at 90. There we go. So now it's going to be feathered. Let's do 95, and we'll have that feathered. It's supposed to be feathered at least. It's up to 99. There we go. Let's just do 100, and then we'll have our custom layer here. We're going to do that just at 95, and this will be our trees layer. So there's not going to be really any trees on the snow for the most part, unless we specifically specify in certain areas, which I will specify in a moment. So at or below, and we're going to set this to be about 120 probably. And now we can just use any brush that gives us a fairly decent rough texture, and we're going to plop that in anywhere that we think that trees would be more likely to spawn in. And we're going to make sure that we set it to at least 50, but probably more like 20 will be better. And we're going to set this up in areas that are a bit too high up for most trees, and we're just have to be very careful where we put it. Because we don't want it everywhere, we just want it where we think trees would be. Now make sure that if you do make a schematic, make the trees have roots so that it actually fits a bit better. And I believe that is it. The next thing, okay, here we go. This is the next part. We're gonna need to change the biome. So let's set a snowy tundra, and we're just gonna go around and place a bunch of random snowy tundra stuff, especially around this area. It's gonna be a bit thicker. There we go, a bit more in these areas where there's actually snow. But on the other areas, we're gonna want this to be, we're gonna want to gradiate between them. So that's what I'm doing right now, is we're creating a gradient between the different biomes. We can use this to create a gradient for the color of the leaves, because this will affect the color of the leaves later on. Let's rotate that. And then we're gonna need, I want this to be more of a jungle through here. So let's just, this will be a jungle in the areas where there's gonna be a lot more trees. And around the jungle, we're gonna want probably more like a swamp. We're gonna just have this be placed randomly. Just sort of like place it randomly, just make sure you don't have too many random lines that are going to be too obvious for the player where they look around. And we're going to have a couple giant taiga sort of spread in there, especially in some of these areas, just sort of across the entire thing. There we go. I believe this would be good. Now we can obviously use rocks as well, but let's actually just go into exporting. So we can export as file. Oh, actually go into view first. So we can actually view this in 3D and the 3D view to double check to see if our map actually looks good or not. I'd probably say it's a bit too tall in a lot of areas. This would probably be better if it was stretched a lot more. But as I mentioned, this is literally just a test to show you guys how this works. It's not meant to be that great. We can also export as a height map, and that could be very useful for later stuff. And we can export as a high resolution height map. Okay, there we go. Export as Minecraft map. If you want it to be a very fast export, then we can remove resources and we can change it from stone mix to just plain stone, and it will end up being faster whenever you export. But if you are planning on using this for anything, you'll probably want resources in there. Underground materials is a bit debatable whether or not you want those in there or not. It's really up to you. That's why I removed it, because I don't really care if there's materials under it. I'm not going to be using it for survival. If you're doing it for survival, you'll probably want it there. It really depends on what you want. And we can export as selected tiles, so we can actually pick and choose what tiles we want to be exported, which can be really useful if we're putting this back into a Minecraft map that we've already done previously, and we don't want to mess up any of the terrain that we've already done. So let's actually open up Minecraft, and let's actually see what this looks like in game, because the 3D view is not a very good indicator. I already pretty much know that it's going to be way too tall, but we can fix that. So let's double check and let's just fix it if it's wrong. And if it still doesn't look good after we fix it, then whatever. This was a basic tutorial to show you guys how to do this, and we should be done after we finish this next part. I can't really think of anything else that we're going to need to do. This should be pretty much it. So let's load up this game. This might take a minute because Minecraft's been a little slow lately because of the new 1.16 updates, a couple other things. Don't worry there, it did not crash. That's just Minecraft closing because I forgot to set my default to leave Minecraft open. Though most of you probably don't, so probably didn't even notice. So here we go. So one thing, you can actually put this straight into Bedrock, so you don't need Java. I would recommend just getting Java though, because it's 20 bucks and it makes your life a lot easier. So if you're on PC and you don't have the Java version of Minecraft, then I really don't know why you don't, because it would make your life a lot easier. First off, there's way too many trees. but that's fine. As mentioned, this was just a test map. It actually doesn't seem like it's too tall at the moment, which is surprising. I thought this was going to be way too small, I mean way too tall of a map. But with the trees, it really hides how tall the map is, so it ends up working out really great. And there's the variation in the in the grass color, which you can also, I believe, see in the color of the leaves, unless you can't, which would be unfortunate. But as you can see here, the map is definitely way too steep. The mountain is, at least. But it definitely still works and ends up looking pretty good in the end. This mountain's way too tall. Though I think the mountain range in general works pretty good. I would just need to remove that mountain over there whenever I get the chance. Because of course everything looks looks completely different in Minecraft than it does. I mean, not in Minecraft than it does in WorldPainter. WorldPainter just looks so different whenever you actually get in game and you get to actually look at your terrain and what you made. Everything just looks so different. Though I will say that some of the stuff that we got going on over here with these cliffs, I think worked out pretty good. This is sort of what I was expecting to see, though maybe a little bit less tall. It'd probably help if I would have made the map about 1,000 by 1,000 instead of 500 by 500. Or 650 by 650. But it turned out pretty good. Let's actually go back in the WorldPainter, and I don't think I will fix it, but if you did want to fix it, all you gotta do is just redo it and re-export. And also don't forget to save your project, which is something that I did not do throughout the entire process of this. Always make sure to save, because that will save you a lot of time. So just Control Save, and we can just name it whatever we want. I'm just going to replace the other file. There we go. So, of course, everything is way too tall, so we can just flatten everything out by getting one of these brushes, getting a very large one, flattening it out. That is way too big. Ta-da! Flattened it out. Now it's probably already better. Though we would obviously have to redo a lot of the textures to actually get it to look right. And there we go. So besides redoing the textures of what we just did, that's pretty much how you would do it. And it would be pretty simple because all you gotta do is just redo our basic texture that we did a minute ago. Hopefully we'll be able to go, I'll be able to show you guys some more stuff later on. I do have a couple of videos planned on a couple different things on terrain generation using World Machine and Blender and a couple other things as well. Hopefully you guys really enjoy that, but let's actually end the video now. I believe this is all I wanted to show you. There's nothing else I can think of that you would really need to know about WorldPainter. It's a very, very simple program. I don't think you guys will have that much of an issue with it. Anyway, I hope you guys had a great, wonderful, sublime day, and God bless.